Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Jeff Aiken.
I'm Pat Walsh, and you're watching 411 from 402.
Tonight's top stories are the impeachment of President Johnson, the Freedmen's Bureau, the rise of the Ku Klux Klan, the close of Reconstruction, and the upcoming election of 1876. But first, a word about Reconstruction.
Thanks, Jeff. Reconstruction is bringing the South back into the Union. Lincoln wants to bind the nation's wounds. Others, mainly radical Republicans, want to punish the South.
Now for the news of the impeachment of President Johnson. He's charged with violating the Tenure of Office Act for the firing of Secretary of War Edmund Stanton. Many of his supporters have claimed that this entire impeachment scenario is simply an attempt to remove Johnson from power because they disagree with his plan for Reconstruction.
Johnson's plan is to pardon Confederates who swore allegiance to the Union. Each state could hold a constitutional convention. They must void secession, abolish slavery, and repudiate Confederate debt. And then the states could hold elections to rejoin the Union.
Radical Republicans felt the South caused the war and should be punished. They favor full recognition of African Americans as citizens and federal power over states' rights. In retaliation, Southerners passed laws restricting African Americans' rights called Black Codes.
It looks like Johnson will survive the impeachment. He has won the battle by one Senate vote. But will he win the war?
A new group in the South has been put in place to aid freed slaves and relieve the South's immediate needs. This agency, consisting of both blacks and whites, is known as the Freedmen's Bureau. They have been delivering food and supplies, providing health care and education, reuniting families, and negotiating labor contracts for free African Americans.
Isn't the work they're doing great, Jeff?
It sure is, Pat.
On a sadder side of freedom, many laws have been placed on our Southern African Americans. They're not allowed to out after sunset. Many cannot get a job. Many are forced to sign year-long labor contracts, and if the contract is broken, they will receive no wages. Land restrictions are also being passed for our African Americans. They're only able to rent land in rural areas.
That's awful, Pat. Fortunately, 3 amendments have been passed to help guarantee the rights of all men, no matter their race. Those 3 amendments are the 13th, 14th, and 15th. The 13th Amendment we've really seen in action. It has ended slavery forever by making slavery or forced labor illegal. The 14th grants all people born in the United States and all U.S. citizens in general all their federal rights. And the 15th Amendment will protect every man's right to vote no matter their race, color, or previous condition of servitude.
Jeff, it looks like America's finally living up to the words of the Declaration of Independence.
Well, it seems we are experiencing some backlash in the South. Reports are coming in about a new group made up of former Confederate soldiers who call themselves the Ku Klux Klan. It seems they use terror and violence against African Americans and also anyone who supports these African Americans. The goal of the KKK seems to be to return the South to the way it was before the war.
We have Ashley, our field reporter, down south. She will be talking to Dave, a civilian from Tennessee.
Thanks, Pat. I'm here with Dave, a Southern farmer and supporter of the Freedmen's Bureau. What's been going on down here in Tennessee?
Well, Ashley, things have not been going well at all. 6 former soldiers started the KKK, and they wear their robes and masks. They're supposed to represent the ghosts of Confederate soldiers that died during the war. Many of the group members are upset about the defeat and the freedom of the slaves. I really don't like this group who are using this outlet because they're excluded from American politics.
The Klan doesn't sound like a good group at all. What have they been doing?
Their main goal is to eliminate the Republican Party in the South. In Arkansas, the KKK killed 300 Republicans and murdered 1,000 in Louisiana. In New Orleans, over half the male population belong.
That's terrible. Are they only targeting African Americans?
No, they're so crazy they'd make a bulldog slap his pappy. They target anyone whose views are different from theirs.
This is really becoming a serious issue down here. Thanks, Dave. Pat, Jeff, back to you.
Thanks, Ashley. Congress is not happy with violence that is occurring in the South, especially in regard to voting. The radical Republicans are going to pass laws that will make it illegal to use violence to prevent someone from voting.
President Grant, elected in 1868, has had a number of political scandals occur during his terms. One such scandal involves the Credit Mobilier Company. The company has been set up by the owners of the Union Pacific Railroad to build their portion of the Transcontinental Railroad westward from Omaha. The Union Pacific gave Credit Mobilier enormous sums of federal money. While some of this money actually paid for work, much of it went into the pockets of the Union Pacific officers and to politicians who ignored the fraud. All of these scandals have made many Americans wonder if Reconstruction will work.
It seems the Southern Democrats are coming back to power. Many people down south feel that the school and road building projects have been put into place by Republicans to raise taxes. The Democrats are also discrediting the African American politicians, and a threat of violence is preventing African American voters from voting. By 1874, only 3 states, South Carolina, Louisiana, and Florida, will remain under Republican control.
The election of 1876 pits Democrat Samuel Tilden against Republican Rutherford B. Hayes. Tilden has more popular votes, but there are disputes about the electoral votes in Florida, South Carolina, and Louisiana. It looks like some sort of compromise needs to be reached.
Jeff, this just in. A compromise has been reached. From what I understand, a congressional committee has declared Hayes the winner. He has promised to pull all remaining federal troops from the South. This will basically end Reconstruction.
Seems to me, Pat, this is some sort of corrupt bargain. We now join Ashley in the future with historian Adam Herman.
Thanks, Jeff. Dr. Herman, do you think Reconstruction was a success or failure?
Well, Ashley, it is my professional opinion that radical Reconstruction failed for the most part. By the end of the century, African Americans lost almost all political rights, and de jure segregation was put in place. That's legal segregation, if you didn't know. Some successes of Reconstruction were that it marked the beginning of the rebuilding of the South. The South would be forever reunited, and ideas put in place during Reconstruction that would help lead to the civil rights movement and equality for all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Herman. Now, I'll go back in time to the studio.
Thanks, Ashley. That's all the time we have for tonight. The 411 for 402 News. I'm Jeff Aiken. Say goodnight, Pat.
Good night, Pat.